Mhm. What's up, everybody? In today's video, if you're watching, we're going to be doing a live mock draft where we're using the Scott Fishbowl 15 settings here. And I'm going to review those real quick before we start, give some more people a chance to join. If you could give the stream a like, I'd really appreciate it. If you're not subscribed and you happen to stumble across this, that'd be awesome too. So taking a look at the live settings here, it's going to be an ultra flex lineup, rather, with 11 starters and 11 bench. I'm not going to do the full amount of bench spots. I think I'm going to do a total of 6 or so bench spots because, eventually we don't care so much. But it's really interesting. So you're going to have 2 super flex spots here and then 9 regular flex spots. So this allows for quite a bit of positional versatility. The scoring, I couldn't exactly change the actual scoring settings in and of themselves, but in a real Scott Fishbowl 15 league, it would be 6 points for all touchdowns, 2 points for 2-point conversions, 25 passing yards per point, 10 rushing or receiving yards per point, a point for first down, and then an extra point per tight end reception. So basically a full point tight end premium. Then in sleeper leagues, I'm doing this based on sleeper. You would have 2.5 points per reception. It kind of lists out some of the rankings here. It's a little bit difficult. I can't really make the ADP lineup with where it would in this specific setting. But for instance, your tight ends like Brock Bowers are supposed to get about 548, which is actually more than the highest projected scoring quarterback in this setting. But interestingly enough, it appears as though running backs and wide receivers, at least the elite ones, are projected to score more than the elite quarterbacks are, even in these settings. And so it's kind of going to bring a good balance for all the positions here. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. You can use this if you kind of want to have a cheat sheet of rankings. I'm just going to take a look real quick and try to do my best to remember kind of what is going to matter more. Taking a look, it looks like running backs in general are going to be better for your lineups here for a ways down potentially. Some of the elite receivers as well. The truly elite of the elite tight ends, after that, it kind of doesn't matter as much. And quarterbacks are still valuable in your super flex spots, but nonetheless, it does appear as though running backs are going to matter substantially in this setting. So taking a look again, it appears that there are still only 3 of us. I'm going to go ahead and start this in another minute here once it reaches 6:05. And this was actually upon a request from somebody who was in yesterday's live mock draft. I did send him a message, but I'm not sure he's going to make it today. Either way, if he happens to, I think he's a subscriber, and he can take a look at kind of how this league setting worked itself out. But in 1 minute here, we'll go ahead and get started. Taking a look at some news real quick while we see if he joins. I don't really care personally. I don't think it's going to really matter much. But Shadur Sanders was obviously yesterday caught speeding 101 in a 60. But apparently back on June 5th, he was ticketed for going 91 in a 65. Really, I don't think it's going to change uh, his likelihood of being or not being their quarterback. But it really is a big sign of immaturity. And, throughout the pre-draft process, there were reports of him being rather immature, and this kind of stacks up, in my opinion. While speeding tickets, obviously, among NFL players' problems are one of the least worries we have, still not the maturity you would prefer out of your quarterback here. And then another thing is Rashee Rice. Rashee Rice was somebody that I've been very high on. I've been trying to get in some of my leagues. People haven't really been wanting to sell. Did get him in some startups, though. There was Jeff Miller here, one of the fantasy doctor guys, was showing that Chris Godwin, in return from a similar injury back in from 2021 to 2022, did have a very good season after a similar injury, and in a relatively similar role, a low ADOT type of role, high volume role. So I think that based on the history, and while that is just, once again, he even mentions it, it's not a perfect 1-for-1 comp. I do think that we can expect good things from Rashee, and apparently it's been all systems go for him, and he's going to be full go here. So I do like Rashee Rice this season. But I'm going to go ahead and randomize this one time, and then we are going to go ahead and get started. So I'll go ahead and start. So it appears Josh Allen went first overall. If you remember the league settings, the elite of the elite generally are going to be relatively close in rankings. But running backs, in general, the depth of running backs are going to be very valuable in this league setting. So it looks like the first three quarterbacks went off the board here. Then we have Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson. I do remember Brock Bowers was very good and was actually projected to score more than quarterbacks in this setting. And so while I generally don't care so much for tight ends, I am considering him. But I do believe that among the why is it not letting me select between? So it's only going to allow me, it's not going to allow me to do between positions here. I do remember that running backs actually had the highest projected point scoring in this. So I'm going to go ahead and go with Bijan, where generally I wouldn't. Oh, man. Okay. So, Jeffrey, I'm actually drafting from the position in which you would be drafting here. So I'm going to do this by what I looked at the Scott Fishbowl settings said to do here. And so you should get a pretty good idea of what a good team should look like based on these settings. I'm going to show you real quick. It kind of showed here on this site from RotoWire that obviously your elite tight ends are projected to score, a little bit more than your elite quarterbacks even. Then Bijan actually was projected to be the highest scoring player, so that's why I took him 6th overall. So if he's available there, I do think that that is a good buy for you. And running backs in general project to be quite a bit better in these settings down the line than some of their counterparts. So getting back to this, though, I don't want to hold everybody up. It looks like Gibbs, Genty, and Barkley all went off the board, though, a bunch of those guys, as well as your high-scoring wide receivers here. I'm actually going to select Trey McBride here in the second. Oh, you ran the war on Dynasty, Daddy? You need a top 8 QB? Well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I could have gone as a quarterback here. I do appreciate the war, and I use that for my leagues as well. Taking a look here, though, and it's too late for that, so we're going to try to build a team best I can. Taking a look at who is left among the quarterbacks, it's looking like a bunch of them have gone off the board so far. So Jordan Love is there, Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray could be a top 10 quarterback. I do think Brock Purdy could potentially be a top 10 quarterback as well. Taking a look at who's left among the other players, though. I think I'm going to go with, you're thinking Baker? I do think Baker's a good pick. Yeah, it is 6 points per passing touchdown, so that is a good point as well. And he's already shown, obviously, that he can be a top 5 quarterback. He's coming off a season. We'll see if there's any regression with Grizzard being the new offensive coordinator as opposed to Liam Cohen. If anything, I don't think he should be changing much. And with Baker Mayfield, not only did he not lose any of his assets in terms of playmakers, he gained Emeka Egbuka. So I do like that for him. Great offensive line as well. Should be a very encouraging offensive environment for him. We'll see what Art does here. Yeah, and I probably should have run the war through Dynasty Daddy. That's a good point. I was so focused on trying to make sure I could get the settings to kind of talk over those before the live started that I didn't even think to do that. Taking a look, though, Art has Chase and London, 2 top-tier wide receivers. They are projected to score quite a bit. Achan is less of volume. Is less of a volume guy through the ground. He should get plenty of receiving volume if everything stays the same. So it looks like Art is going running back and wide receiver heavy here through 4 rounds with Chase, London, Achan, and Henderson. And Only One Real has Lamar Jackson, Jordan Love, Bucky Irving, and Nico Collins. Taking a look at who's available here, I kind of want a high volume type of guy. Somebody that should get with some touchdown upside preferably. I do think Jonathan Taylor's potentially a good one. I do think Kyler Murray could potentially be a top 10 asset as well in the quarterback position. I do have the ability to start 2 super flexes and 9 flexes in this format. Taking a look at who's going to be available after that, I do think there's some decent volume options at running back that I could potentially get next round. I wish I would have done the war, like you said. I'm going to go with Kyler Murray here so I can stack 2 potential top 10 quarterbacks. Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking too. So we get Taylor went off the board, Judkins, Henry, Chase Brown, bunch of volume guys that I would like among the running backs here. I do think that RJ Harvey could be a decent pick. This is a little bit of a difficult position. Taking a look at who is still available. The thing I like about this is I don't even have to go wide receiver if I don't like the value. Do you think that Caleb Johnson has some upside? RJ Harvey as well. I think I'm going to go ahead and go with somebody that I think is going to score quite a few touchdowns in RJ Harvey. I noticed that the running backs generally, unless you could get a difference maker among who's left at some of these other positions, are generally going to score more points than other positions. So I do think that since I have my 2 super flexes and they're locked in, I think I'm going to go very running back heavy for the rest of this draft. You are in one of Bobby's leagues. You're wondering what I think of Matthew Golden. So I think he's a talented player. I worry that they're going to play him in the Christian Watson role, which is more of a vertical role where, you're going to get those big gains potentially, but you're not going to see a ton of volume. Now, I could definitely be wrong. It's really more so a worry, but at the same time, he's going late first, early second at times. So the value in your rookie drafts, or if you're in a startup, I guess it's a little bit different. It's not like you have to spend an early first on him like you do with somebody that's risky, like Travis Hunter, for instance. I think that, he's okay after the catch. I think he's a dominant ball winner. Route running is decent as well. The advanced stats do scare me quite a bit. Taking a look at who's here, I'm really thinking of leaning Caleb Johnson here. So I'm thinking Caleb Johnson. Chuba is also somebody that could score some points. I'm going to go with Caleb Johnson, I think. Yeah. I think Caleb Johnson's going to score quite a few points. I think he's going to get a ton of volume. I think he sees the goal line roll. In terms of Matthew Golden, so it's really less so of a potential. Yeah, I like Joe Mixon too. With Matthew Golden, though, it's less of a talent concern with me and more of a what his role might be. And I know there's arguments on two sides of the aisle here where some people are saying that I'm going to go Kamara here, I think. I think he could score quite a bunch of points here. Yeah. I'm going to go Kamara here. Very running back heavy. But getting back to Golden, I like his talent. I just worry that the downside is he's in the Christian Watson role where, you could get 4 for 50 and nothing. You could get, 5 for 100 and 2 touchdowns on a good day. I worry that he's going to be inconsistent because of the role. And then the slot role I would like in this offense, but, they have Jaden Reed, and Jaden Reed's more of a limited player. In the sense of you really don't want him on line of scrimmage ever. You want him in the slot for the most part. And so I think that he might end up being a better real life talent than a fantasy talent, but I could definitely be wrong. And, the reasoning for which we didn't see a lot of highly targeted players in this offense and it was more so spread out, it's just because none of them per se deserved it. I'm of the opinion that Jaden Reed deserved way more target volume despite some of his drop issues because I think he's really talented, great yak guy. Very versatile in the sense of he's a good slot guy and he can be utilized in the run game. So I'm cautiously optimistic for Matthew Golden. I just worry that he's going to be in a role that's more NFL important than fantasy important. Taking a look at Art, he has Chase, London, Egbuka, Young, and McCarthy, Henderson, Achan. Taking a look at only one real, he has Lamar, Love, Odunze, Golden, Judy, Bucky, and Kittle, difference maker at tight end there with Kittle. I like that for you. Taking a look at who is left here. Trying to think of somebody that could score some points. I really think Devontae Adams could finish rather highly. Thinking about that. Is Chris Godwin available? I do like Chris Godwin. Do I think he makes it? I do like Devontae Adams better though. Yeah. I see what you're saying too. I'm going to go with Devontae Adams here. Somebody who I think has the potential to be a top 15 wide receiver this season. Maybe higher if he has, quite a few touchdowns this season. We'll end up seeing what that looks like. So Fields, Scatterboo, Sutton, Prescott, Pacheco, Kincaid, Pearsall, Burden, Connor Robinson, Pitts. Taking a look at who's left. Some quarterbacks I don't care about. I think Chris Godwin would be a good pick, coincidentally. I'm kind of glad that I picked Adams. I might go with Chris Godwin. I'm trying to see if there's any running backs that I think could potentially finish in that sweet spot or better. It's not looking good to me at this point. I think I am going to go with Godwin. Yeah. And so another thing I'm doing here is I'm stacking Chris Godwin with Baker Mayfield. I think that I could get some huge boom weeks with this stack, and I think I'm going to have consistency with both of them, assuming Godwin's health is in order to begin the season. I haven't seen anything suggesting that he's going to be in any particular danger, but I would, if this was a real draft, have ensured that I looked that up before I say that. But looking at this team, Bijan, Caleb Johnson, and Kamara should get plenty of volume. RJ Harvey, I think that the short term could be a little bit muddy with J.K. Dobbins, but when is the last time J.K. Dobbins has been fully healthy and made it throughout the entirety of his season? I think Harvey gets work regardless. I think he has touchdown upside, and I think he's dangerous with the Broncos. Taking a look at Art goes with Josh Downs, somebody who I think with Daniel Jones is potentially more dangerous than with Anthony Richardson. So I do like that for you. DeAndre Swift should get some volume. Going with Jackson Dart. Taking a look at who's left here. Khalil Shakir should be getting quite a few first downs. We'll see if Art ends up going with him. Tony Pollard should get some good volume. I think Calvin Ridley's a sneaky pick a little bit later. We'll see what Art ends up doing here. So only one real gets Jackson Dart to be his quarterback 3 after Lamar and Love. How do I feel about Josh Jacobs? Does he have top 3 upside? So top 3 upside. Typically, I believe I did, before this past season, I did an average RB1 overall video where I took a look at 5 running back ones in a row and averaged out their stats with some minimum stats as well. And I believe the average RB1 score is about 17 touchdowns, if I'm not mistaken, over the course of 5 years, not including this past season. So I think it's probably on the low end that he's the RB1 overall. Would he have enough upside to potentially be a top 3 back? I believe he was a top 5 back this past season, if I'm not mistaken. Art goes with Sam Darnold. I'm going to take a look at real quick to see where Josh Jacobs finished this past season. I believe he was a top 5 back in a full point PPR. But I don't want to say that and then not fact check that. Okay, so he's the 6. And, he had 15 rushing touchdowns, 1,300 rushing yards. I do like him. So I do think that, when it comes... one thing I specifically like, whether or not he has top 3 upside, I think it's possible if he gets enough touchdowns. One thing I really like with him is that they are going to give him the ball more and more when it's cold out towards our fantasy playoffs time of the season. And I think he has a lot of touchdown and volume upside. So I think he's going to, assuming he stays healthy, be there when it matters most. Taking a look at who's left. I don't really want quarterback 3 yet. Shakir's an option. Pollard's an option. Trying to think of somebody that should get some volume. I like Calvin Ridley. I think I'm going to go with Tony Pollard, though, for the safety of volume. I think that they're going to want to get the ball out of Cam Ward's hands as much as possible. And I really like the running back heavy build. And I think he's one of the last guys that's left that is more likely than not guaranteed to get some volume. Oh yeah, so you said Pollard here. Well, there you go. I did select Pollard. And Bobby's big board, you don't even want to know how many shares of Jacobs. Yeah, because Jacobs is awesome. We love Josh Jacobs here. Somebody who I think could get quite a bit of volume here is Calvin Ridley. I'm going to go with him here. I think he's the unquestioned RB1 there in Tennessee. I like Cam Ward. I think that Cam Ward has a decent chance. And I think that more importantly than not, I think regardless as to whether he ends up being a supremely talented real life quarterback, I think he has the actual ability to get the ball out to his playmakers. And, he's also one of these quarterbacks that's been on the progression upwards every time he's moved. And I noticed a trend with quarterbacks where, with Bo Nix, he was on an upward trajectory, Jaden Daniels, upward trajectory. I kind of like these quarterback draft prospects who are on upward trajectories. And we've seen that, with players like I mentioned, Jaden Daniels and Bo Nix, for instance, that older guys coming into the league with more experience are succeeding. So maybe there's not enough of a sample size to really say that there's correlation there, but I do like Cam Ward. Taking a look at Art, he already has his quarterback 3, so probably not going quarterback here. We'll see what he ends up doing. Goes with Kyle Williams. I like Kyle Williams. I think if he's good, he's going to have every opportunity to assert himself immediately as a vertical X in this offense. I think he can dominate from the slot as well. Very good at slants, in breaking routes, can separate vertically with a nasty speed release. I do like him. We'll see what Only One Real does here. So he goes with Travis Kelce here, somebody that could get a good bit of volume. Okay, I think I know what I'm gonna do here next. We'll see what Only One Real and Art do. So Only One Real goes with Juwan Jennings, somebody that I think could take advantage of Ayuk potentially being on the PUP list and missing at least the first 4 games this next season. I would like to think that the 49ers are going to be a little bit more pass happy than they have been in past seasons. Christian McCaffrey is only getting older. I'm personally out on McCaffrey. I know tons of people are trying to buy low. I've seen him go for first round picks, being McCaffrey. 29-year-old running back who just missed the season with 2 injuries and debatably could have come back if they weren't out of playoff contention is fine, but I don't really like to bet on old running backs who the last time I saw them didn't look particularly great and didn't produce well either. So I do like buying some of the other members of this offense, and especially way later in drafts, getting some of these Isaac Guerrero, Jordan James shares. I know, Bobby, if you're still in here, I know we love Jordan James. Oh, he took Jordan Mason. Great pick, Only One Real. That's exactly who I was going to go for if he slid. Somebody who I think, he only has Aaron Jones ahead of him. I think that Aaron Jones is a great player when he plays, but at this point, I think it's pretty reasonable to expect some injuries from him and probably missing some time. And they did trade for Jordan Mason specifically. So with them with them trading for him, I think they have a plan to use him. So that was a great pick. We shall see. At this point, it's getting kind of sketchy where there's nothing guaranteed for the most part with players other than A-Rich, Gino, and Stafford in terms of probably getting some starts at the quarterback position specifically. So Art goes with Stephon Diggs, somebody who I think, if he returns to form, could be wicked with Drake May this season. That could be a smash pick for you. Could be devastating if he's just not the same guy. So that's kind of a risky pick, but at this point in the draft, we're just aiming for upside, so it's a very good upside pick. Taking a look at who is available here. So I think that there are enough teams after me, if I'm not mistaken, that do not have a quarterback here. We have Mahomes, Herbert on team 12, Purdy, Knicks, team 11, Prescott, Tua, team 10, team 9 only has 2 quarterbacks. So every team that's after me only has 2 quarterbacks, actually. And so while it may be random, I'm going to invest in quarterback here. Now, this is a 6-point passing touchdown league, so that kind of hurts Anthony Richardson, besides the fact that he's very injury prone and just, as of yet at least, not a very good quarterback. Then that kind of leaves you with Geno Smith and Matthew Stafford. So with Geno Smith, I think he's definitely an underrated quarterback. I think, though, that with Ashton Genty there in town, they are going to try to run the ball a lot more than they did this past season. I think that they're going to be scoring plenty of points. And so it's between him and Stafford. With Stafford, the addition of Devontae Adams is nice. And I actually did draft Devontae Adams as well, so I could potentially stack. And I think that's what I'm going to do here. Stack Adams with Matthew Stafford. Secure the quarterback 3 so that I can have an ideal lineup in a in this Fishbowl setting here. Then Jeffrey Jacobs, Stafford is our QB3. There you go. Stack him with Devontae Adams. That's nice. I was kind of disappointed Darnell Mooney went. I think Mooney could have been a decent volume play as well. Same with Ramondre Stevenson, even if I don't think he's the best running back in that backfield by any means. I think Tank Bigsby could actually be interesting here. I think Bigsby theoretically could get plenty of touchdowns in this Cohen offense. Tootin's already off the board as well. Ray Davis is an injury away, potentially, or a holdout away. I think I'm going to go with Tank Bigsby here. Really like the cold weather take on Jacobs. Never thought of anything like that. Do you think Tucker Kraft could turn into a solid starting tight end? With Tucker Kraft, I think he's a very good tight end, and he's one of those profiles that I like where he's very good with the ball in his hands, maximizing yardage after the catch, which is, you saw some of those very low volume but high efficiency games from him this past season. I'm hoping because, sure, they added Matthew Golden to the offense. I'm hoping that he can establish himself as more of a central piece consistently of the offense. I think, being in the NFC North, you got to put up some points, man, right? So while I'm not the biggest Jordan Love guy personally, I think he's obviously fine enough to get the ball to his playmakers. And so I do think that he has a ton of upside, and especially when you consider the fact that he's not old, the tight end landscape is very top heavy in the sense of real difference makers. You have your Bowers most likely, unless he falls off a cliff, which probably isn't happening. Trey McBride, Kittle's old. Then you have your kind of guys that matter a little bit more than the others, such as, Sam Laporta's of the world. And so, long story short, I really like the yak ability with Tucker Kraft, and I think that he's talented enough and a lot better than most of their wide receivers for sure, that I do think that he should earn more of a significant, consistent role in the offense. But nonetheless, he was very efficient, even in some limited volume this past season. So I think he could definitely do worse at tight end. I wouldn't be overdrafting him per se if you don't have to, but if you could get him at a decent price, potentially kind of throw him in something larger if you're aiming to get him to kind of try to get some cheap value in a trade to acquire him, I think that could be good for you. Taking a look at Art goes Rashid Shaheed, somebody who just like Kraft was very efficient with limited volume at times. The departure of Derek Carr I think is bad. Isn't good for him because Derek Carr's deep ball was pretty good. Tyler Shuck, we'll see if he ends up being good. I don't really like Tyler Shuck, but with Shaheed, good vertical guy. Only one real goes Tillman. I think he could get a good bit of volume too. He was, Jameis made him the wide receiver 1 overall in a 3-week stretch this past season. Pretty crazy, right? Then he goes Jalen Milroe, somebody with unlimited upside, kind of like Anthony Richardson. I think if he gets starts, it does not matter if he's good at all. He will put up points. And then Coker, somebody who I think is very talented as well. And if you guys haven't liked the stream, I would really appreciate it if you give the stream a like. Taking a look at who's left, though, before I kind of just talk myself out of the timer here. I already have 3 quarterbacks. A quarterback's just not going to happen. Don't care about that. With tight ends, I kind of want to get guys that could theoretically be the second option in their team. Kate Otton's just not going to happen. Terrence Ferguson, with an injury to Puka or Cup, or not Puka, or not Cup, Adams, who has been healthy. If Puka goes down again, could be a top 2 option. Goddard's probably not, and it's going to be very run heavy. Arroyo, probably not going to be a top 2 option. Trying to look at somebody that could get some good volume. With who's available, I'm really thinking I like Ray Davis here. I think there's a lot of upside with him. Yeah, in the event that James Cook goes down or would hold out for whatever reason, I think that Ray Davis could be a smash for us in fantasy. Who is my most drafted favorite player at each position? So with most drafted, I like to have a portfolio approach where I don't really have, I'm not too heavy on any one player if I can really help it. Somebody that I own that I'm potentially a little bit heavy on. Really can't think of anybody that's very that's particularly valuable. I'm pretty evenly spread around that. I have a couple shares of Brian Thomas, 2 shares of Caleb Williams, 2 shares of Trevor Lawrence. I'm big on the Jags offense under Cohen and the Bears offense under Ben Johnson. Favorite player at each position? My favorite quarterback in fantasy. It's hard to assess, really. I'll say my favorite quarterback that I think could potentially finish much higher than where they're valued right now would be somebody like Bo Nix. I really like Bo Nix, the rushing ability. Same with Drake May. My favorite running back in fantasy is probably going to be Bijan Robinson, somebody that I think could finish higher than where they're projected to finish right now. Potentially Travion Henderson. I think he's way more talented than Stevenson and could score plenty of touchdowns. My favorite wide receiver is easily Malik Neighbors. It's actually a minute left on my pick. I'm going to go with Elic Amanor, somebody who I think is okay. Definitely has some hands issues, but I think that the wide receiver 2 position there in Tennessee is wide open. I think they're going to be a decently poor team, so I think they should have to throw the ball quite a bit. But yeah, Malik Neighbors is definitely my favorite fantasy wide receiver and probably real life wide receiver as well. And I think he could definitely be the wide receiver 1 here this season. I made projecting who is the wide receiver 1 video a couple weeks ago, and I have Malik Neighbors as my guy who I'm projecting because the target competition is the exact same as it was. He received 3 quarterback upgrades, at least in my opinion. With Jackson Dart, we'll see. Same coaching staff, Daboll going to funnel targets through him. And, this year with Russell Wilson, at least, I'm hoping that, on those long 9s and those slot fades, that he's not going to have to come back 20 yards to the football to catch it. And it's actually going to be a good moon ball. With tight ends, I think Trey McBride, is who I would project to be the tight end 1 this season. I think that MHJ sees some more targets, but I do think that we see an evening out of touchdown scoring from McBride. He hasn't been prolific yet, but it's incredibly crazy that he only had 2 receiving touchdowns this past season. He was open so many times in the end zone, and Kyler just did not see him or missed him. I mean, he threw that one that he threw early, and it doinked McBride in the helmet. So definitely like Trey McBride. Tight end that I think could massively outproduce their ADP is somebody like Mason Taylor. I wasn't big on the talent of him, But you want to talk about somebody that could easily be the number 2 in an offense. With Justin Fields, I don't really particularly like that, but outside of Garrett Wilson, nobody really scares me in that passing game. And Jeffrey Jacobs says wide receiver the rest of the way according to War. Yeah, so I went with Eli Galemanner, somebody who I think has some upside in terms of the potential for volume. Really just looking for guys that could get roles at this point. I'm really out on Quentin Johnson. I never liked his profile and was out on him. I mean, really, the target, the volume guys are gone at this point. It appears. Thielen's kind of aging out. I think I might go with Demario Douglas here. With Demario Douglas, I think he starts in out of the slot for the Patriots. I didn't draft Drake May, so it's not a stack or anything. I'm going to take a look at some of the teams here. I'll take a look at mine last. We're going to take a look at Only One Reels team. So remember, guys, with this one, you theoretically would want to, you're starting 2 super flexes and 9 regular flexes, so a start 11 in total. And really, it just allows for ridiculous amount of versatility here. I'm pretty sure I have a pretty ideal starting lineup. I'm taking a look at Only One Reels team. In terms of his super flexes, he has Lamar Jackson and Jordan Love. I love Lamar Jackson. If he stays healthy, he's easily our quarterback 1 overall candidate. Even in the 6-point passing touchdown settings we have here, Jordan Love is somebody who is talented as well. He's already shown the ability to finish very highly. Jalen Milroe's a lot of upside, and Jackson Dart. So you have kind of 2 guys with a chance of being your quarterback 3. Nico Collins, tons of volume when he's healthy, tons of upside. Bucky Irving, very efficient, should get a good bit of volume, way more talented than his counterpart in the backfield. Rome Odunze, somebody that I think is, I definitely understand the concern with him. I think he's their most talented wide receiver. I think he, with Ben Johnson there, is going to actually be schemed to be open where he's not only running deep down the field and being isolated so much, and he's not going to have so much congestion. There's so many times this past year where all the Bears wide receivers were in the same area of the field, and it was really frustrating to watch. George Kittle, somebody that's an elite difference-making tight end. Definitely understand that pick as well. Matthew Golden, a high upside play. Like I said, I'm worried about potentially the role with him. It's not so much I don't think he's good, but, roles are not the same for us in fantasy. We want volume, volume, volume. Jerry Jeudy, somebody who put up ridiculous points with Jameis last year. We'll see what he does this year. I think that Njoku is going to be kind of the centerpiece, and I think Jerry's more of the number 2 target. But still, DeAndre Swift, somebody who's at least right now the heavy favorite to receive a good bit of volume at that backfield. Jordan Mason, I really love that pick. Sniped me on him. Tillman could also get some volume as well. Taking a look at Art's team here. Art has quarterback. He has J.J. McCarthy and Bryce Young, Sam Darnold. With J.J. McCarthy, there's a ton of upside. He could be a big riser among the quarterback position. Great situation in terms of the play caller, and it's actually a head coach, so you don't have to worry about an offensive coordinator leaving. Great weapons. They invested heavily in the O-line. If he's good, I think he's going to be good for us in fantasy. With Bryce Young, he showed huge flashes in week 16 and 18, I believe it was, and generally looked better after his benching. So if he continues that, I think he has the ability to be a decent quarterback for us. And he showed some rushing upside with rushing touchdowns as well. It was pretty nice. Darnold, I think, I think he's starting for now, but I don't think he's going to be particularly great. That offensive line is definitely nothing like the Vikings was, and especially just in general. I like Kubiak, but he's an offensive coordinator, and I don't think he's Kevin O'Connell. Chase, obviously great smash pick. Drake London smash pick. Achane and Henderson, I really like them as well. Emeka Egbuka is more of could get Rome Odunze, JSN a little bit, but they definitely should be starting a decent amount of 11 personnel. And I think that he has the upside to be a smash for us this season. And I think he's a great player that's going to be good for a long time. Jaden Higgins, I really like that he's not going to be the X in that offense. He's just not good against press coverage. I want him in the slot preferably, or at least off line of scrimmage if he has to be outside. Josh Downs, great slot receiver. Kyle Williams could get a ton of volume. Stephon Diggs, so you kind of double dip there, making a bet on the New England wide receivers. DJ Giddens, I love that Jonathan Taylor has missed time in each of the past 3 seasons. Jordan James, and a high upside pick. I really liked him coming out. And then finally getting to my team here. Taking a look, we have Bijan Robinson. I'll take a look at the quarterbacks first, actually. So we have Baker Mayfield, somebody who was a top 5 quarterback. There's the potential for some regression under Josh Grizzard, but I still think he's a top 10 quarterback. Great offensive line. They upgraded his weaponry. We'll see about the play calling, but I think he's going to be fine, and I love the Buccaneers offense. Kyler Murray, somebody that I really don't like for dynasty long term, but is almost a lock if he stays healthy to be a top 10 quarterback due to the Konami code nature of his game. And then Matthew Stafford, a solid QB3, older, so probably a 1 to 2 year kind of guy, but we'll see how that plays out. For now, it's fine though. And in the 6-point passing touchdown format, I really like that. Bijan was actually projected to score the most amount of points in this entire format, and I got him at the 106. So Jeffrey, if you're watching this, I think Bijan is a fantastic pick. Like you said, you looked at the war, and a top 8 quarterback is great too. I think you're not going to go wrong either way. It's really hard to mess up in the first round unless you just reach like crazy. Then Trey McBride, somebody who is a huge difference-making tight end, should get a ridiculous amount of volume, especially with that tight end premium. I really like that. I believe it was a full 1.0 tight end premium over the rest of positions. I think he's a smash pick in the second round, man. Then RJ Harvey, somebody who I think, J.K. Dobbins, it sucks, but when is the last time he's ever stayed healthy throughout the entirety of a season? Not worried at all. I think he's going to get a good bit of receptions. I think he's going to score plenty of touchdowns. I think he's going to be nasty in this offense with him and Bo Nix and Sean Payton. Sean Payton's going to get the most out of him. Caleb Johnson should get a good bit of volume in Aaron Rodgers' offense. I think he has a decent amount of touchdown upside. I worry that Aaron Rodgers stat pads, though. So at that point in time, though, I thought he was a good pick and should be a solid RB2 of some sorts, in my opinion, in this format. Alvin Kamara, if he stays healthy, smash top 10 running back. Definitely on the older side though, but still just as good as ever in the receiving game. And he was the RB1 through a couple weeks of the past season. We'll see if that continues. He's an explosive player that should get some volume because that offense is pretty gross for the most part. Devontae Adams, I think, is a smash pick, and I like stacking him with Matt Stafford. Devontae Adams, I think, could be a top 15 wide receiver. Has tons of touchdown upside. Sean McVay is going to get him the ball. Chris Godwin, we'll see if he starts out a little bit slow, but once again, I was trying to stack him for elite league-winning and week-winning upside with Baker Mayfield as well. So I like kind of some of these stacks, and especially since it's quarterback and wide receiver. Obviously, I don't want to have too many players on the same individual team, but at some point, it's fine. For instance, I have Tony Pollard and Calvin Ridley, running back and a wide receiver. I don't want to have 2 wide receivers from the same team until it was at the very end, and Eli Manor was like the only guy that I thought had a decent shot at getting any volume. So we'll see about that. But yeah, looking at it, and Ray Davis, Tank Bigsby, some running backs that I think with Tank Bigsby, I think that he could potentially, if Etienne's traded away, get a good bit of volume and score plenty of touchdowns in this Cohen offense. But probably not going to do much in the receiving game. And then with Ray Davis, he's one, James Cook injury / holdout away from being the RB1 in a Josh Allen Bills offense. We saw what James Cook could do. Ray Davis has already shown that he's a decent receiving back and has the build to be a dominant bell cow if he needs to be. And then Demario Douglas was just an upside pick at getting a decent bit of receptions and target volume out of the slot. But at that point, you're kind of just shooting for upside, not really guaranteed anything. So taking a look at the chat here, Jeffrey says, I like the way things fell after taking Bijan McBride. Yeah, it was quite risky. I saw what you said about the war. And once again, I hadn't really taken a look at the wins above replacement for this league setting specifically. I just really liked being able to, in a full point tight end premium on top of all these other parameters, getting a ridiculous volume tight end like Trey McBride, I think is a huge advantage. Taking a look actually at the list here, Trey McBride was supposed to score 532 points. Taking a look, Caleb was after that, Drake London. So Drake London, Caleb Williams. Drake London was supposed to score 453. So I actually got way more projected points than him. And who was the other one? Caleb Williams. Caleb was supposed to get 411. So yeah, I think that was a very good pick. And with Bijan, he was actually supposed to score the most points, if you see, 563 out of anybody in this league format. So obviously the top two picks were good picks, at least if what they're projecting based on these formats and parameters ends up hitting. With Baker Mayfield, taking a look, 436 for Baker. Players around him like Wilson and Achane. Wilson supposed to get 398 to Baker's 436. Achane was supposed to get 482 to Baker's 436. So potentially could have gone Achane there, but definitely wanted to have two top 10 type of quarterbacks so I could have what I think would be an ideal lineup in this format. But overall, I like that. And yeah. Anyways, guys, this was a requested format, the Scott Fishbowl 15 format, where once again, we were starting 2 super flexes and 9 flexes. I like kind of these mock drafts where we get to have a little bit of versatility and it's not so predetermined as to what we want to do. You know, when we have these common formats such as, quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, tight end, maybe 3 flexes and then a super flex. It's just a lot more interesting when you get to draft with some versatility. And while I am going to be doing a couple more, kind of more generic startups just because that's what people more commonly do. If you want to request any specific settings for the future, feel free to. I'm going to be doing some redraft in the future as well, kind of once it gets a little bit closer to that. I know a lot of people play redraft, so... and one thing with this is it's just projections and everybody has their own biases towards their players that they like. So I think that anyone can really say that they like their team more than another team, but unless you really draft poorly based on the wins above replacement and just paying attention to the general league settings and taking advantage of where you can ADP, I think it's more subjective than objective. But anyways, guys, I really hope you appreciated this. Please give the stream a like, subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed. I'd really appreciate it. I plan on going live a couple times this next week, potentially during this weekend. Let me know what you thought. Thanks, and I'll see you guys soon.